Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TSM University Q&A series. I'm your host, Joe, and with us today, we have an extremely special guest, Jeff Chow.
Hello, everyone.
For this Q&A, we'll be pulling questions from our TSMU Discord. So if you have any question for Jeff, head to discord.gg/TSMU and ask your question in the Q&A questions channel. So while we're waiting for people to go ahead and start asking their questions, Jeff, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself so people can get to know you?
Yeah, excited to be here and talk about my favorite topic, mobile esports. So for me, my past, I'm going to date myself. Back in 1999, I grew up in South Korea, and that's where I played a lot of PC games like StarCraft, which is the big PC esports that kind of went global. And from Korea, I went to college. And then mobile esports comes a later stage after, I worked at Apple and all these other companies. And I got into a game called Vainglory. And it was basically League on mobile on a tablet. And it was super fun. And I just played it a lot and turned out to be top 10 on the server and then formed a team. One thing led to another. And then I won a tournament and really got a taste of mobile esports. And I knew immediately that this is the future of esports and gaming because of the community it's built. And it's really no different than PC and console when you think about fans and players and the game. And then from there, I did a lot of things. I co-founded my own esports org. I was a professional player. I was a head coach, manager, head of competitive biz development. So I've done like all the roles. I was also an esports caster. So that was a lot of fun. And I've casted all over the world from Australia to, the UK to Singapore to China. I did the Asia Games in 2018. And I think that's probably what sticks out to me the most because that's when it was the first time that esports was a demonstration medal event. So I got to be a part of history there, and that was awesome. It was in Jakarta-Palembang actually, and then the World Cyber Games. I got to talk about the rise of mobile gaming and esports, and also casted Honor of Kings, which is the biggest mobile esports in the world right now in China. So that was a lot of fun. And then I worked at Immortals as GM head of mobile. Did a project with Team Liquid. And then also consulted with TSM a few times back in 2019, came back in 2020, and then now here as a director of mobile at TSM, helping them expand mobile globally, like in India, Brazil, North America, and so on. So that's kind of my career in a nutshell.
Well, that's great. Yeah, you've done a lot, and you've done so many of your own different things, and it's great to have you on here, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that are going to be interested in your past, particularly relating to mobile. And actually, you already touched on part of this already, but just there are a lot of questions and there's a lot of interest in you already. So just getting right into it, Bell Bellum asks, what is it like managing mobile titles? Is there a difference between mobile and PC, and how do you explain the importance of mobile titles to potential investors or the general public?
Yeah, so there isn't really a difference. Of course, there's an input difference in terms of the controller aspect. But you think about the way I explain it to investors or people that want to understand mobile esports better, it's a PC in your pocket, right? Literally it is. And if you look at how PC esports came to be, PC started with a lot of like Tetris. You guys remember all these puzzle games. And then when the PC got better, nicer screens, faster processors, better graphics, then StarCraft, then an online internet connection came, multiplayer gaming then started happening on PC. And guess what happened, right? PC esports was born. So you look at mobile, it's actually following the same trajectory, but it's a PC in your pocket. So mobile started off Candy Crush. I get asked all the time, Candy Crush. And all these puzzle games came out on mobile first, like Temple Run and all that were like the most popular games on mobile. And as those phone screens got bigger, there's internet connection, right? There is better graphics and all that. Then multiplayer online gaming then became really, really popular on mobile phones. And that's where it really started to take off, especially in mobile first countries like China, India, and so on. So that's how I explain it to investors. It's really no different, honestly. The fans are the same. If you look at esports, there's three parts that are really important. Is a quality game, which mobile has, like PC does, and so on. Fans and players. That's it. That's all you need. So if all three of that works in this community, and people love to watch these players play, and it's a great game that they love playing, then you have an esports scene. And it doesn't matter actually what device it's on, console, PC, it doesn't really matter. And that's where I kind of help them understand mobile, because to them, they think mobile is inferior in a sense, or not as attractive as a competitive esports. But there's a huge difference in skill level between a new player or a really high tier player in mobile, because they have to make a lot of split second decisions and a lot of outplays and mechanically high skill shots and skills and abilities and so on, and work together as a team. So it's very similar in that aspect.
Yeah, that's great. I think you really give a good oversight there. Do you find that the stigma of mobile games that you kind of touched upon, do you think that stigma still exists?
Yeah, so funny enough, so I did a lot of research. I've talked at a lot of conferences on this, because people that don't understand mobile or don't play it, it's like similar to how sports people. So how I compare it is like football people who are in traditional sports, they compare PC esports and like, what the heck is this? It's not really competitive. It's not a real sport. So now you see the same thing happening. Literally, PC esports community are saying mobile is not real. It's not competitive. It's not real esports. It's the same thing. So it's really funny because they don't understand what it is, right? So it's the same kind of cycle that's happening. And if you look at, so in China is a really good example. Everyone thinks China mobile is just obvious. It happened. It's, of course, everyone has a mobile phone there, so of course mobile esports will take off. But when League on Mobile, which is called Honor of Kings, came out in China, like everyone in the gaming community in China literally pooped on the game. They called it trash. They said it's a watered down version of League. Why would anyone play this? This is junk. And then it actually suffered and almost it almost failed. Honestly, the game literally did not take off. It was not popular. And what happened was the phones that was like the year 2017, when phones became, the average phone size was like 5 inches or larger. They're much faster. And then they went from a 3v3 to a 5 versus 5, which is similar to League. And then a lot of young people started playing it. Similar to esports, younger audiences played it versus, say, baseball, right, or other sports. So a lot of young, kids played it in China, and it just became a social phenomenon where a majority of girls played it. And then because it was socially acceptable, then it still went through the same issues where people were making fun of it and all that. But once it reached the mainstream, it was people in China no longer look at mobile gamers as if they're like a different breed of gamers. They're all gamers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Similar to how like esports is becoming more mainstream, and now athletes and so on, traditional athletes are recognizing that these are also performance, athletes in their own garb, but digital in that sense. So mobile is going through that same transition. Again, it's similar to what I explained. It's PC in your pocket. The PC went through that same transition. Now mobile is going through that same transition. And once it gets more mainstream in the country, so all the countries went through the same thing, like Southeast Asia, China, and stuff. And once it becomes mainstream, people forget about like mobile not being a real game or not competitive and so on. And now you fast forward to today, like Honor of Kings is the most profitable game in the world, right? It has 100 million daily active players. So that's like the population of like 2 Koreas playing it every day, which is pretty great, or 1/3 of the US playing it every day, basically.
Wow.
And this esports, viewership, it's insane. They sell at all the stadiums over there, and 60 to 70% of the audience in that stadium is female. So that's what makes mobile really interesting to me, is the accessibility and also the diversity. So when I talk about mobile, it's not replacing PC, like esports. PC esports is not replacing football or anything. It's more about displacing, which means that since it's more accessible and it gears towards a much wider audience and community, and many more people are able to play it and have access to it, it then grows the entire esports industry. So that's the best way I want to explain it, and the perception of mobile. So in America, once a game becomes popular, that will and it becomes mainstream. I don't know what game it is. It just takes one game, honestly. Like StarCraft was a PC game that made esports in America more legitimate. It just takes one mobile game in America to become super popular socially. And once it becomes socially acceptable, then a lot of that negative stigma is going to slowly fade away.
I think that's a great answer. And you've been there since the beginning, so I think you're definitely the authority on it. Speaking of your past and the beginning of esports and your involvement in it, since you've had experience at so many different orgs, not Sam asks, what was the transition like when moving between different esport companies? Were you there for the grassroots stages of any companies? And if so, can you explain what that was like?
Yeah, a few years ago, it was definitely grassroots. They were learning about the scene. They saw the potential from other countries, and they're kind of exploring and really learning what mobile was all about. So I do appreciate like in Immortals moved early, like Team Liquid, like TSM also moved very early with Vainglory, and it was then for them to really check out mobile and see what's about and what the potential could be. So they invested in North America because they're a North America-based organization. So a lot of mobile esports organization, like a lot of other esports that before it, some will succeed and some won't be as successful. So for me, going from organization to organization, it was great kind of meeting and talking and honestly educating, a lot of the higher ups to better understand what mobile is about and really about its potential, right? Because we see it perform and really live to its potential in other countries outside the United States. And now really helping to understand that in North America, it's only going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to get bigger and bigger as more and more players start, playing a video game on mobile first. Because a lot of people growing up in the United States, they don't really, own an Xbox or a PS4 before they get a phone. Everyone owns a phone first, and that's their first kind of gaming experience. So I think there's a lot of potential there. So with the orgs, it's really just helping them, get their toes wet, so to speak, learn about mobile, learn about, and honestly, not really learn anything different because it's very similar. Running a competitive team is the same as running a PC esports team and a console, for example. It's really the same. It's the same infrastructure. They have the same roles and positions. You need a coach. You need to manage the team, and so on. It's the only thing that's different, I would say, is streaming on a mobile device is different and helping them set up their stream because it's not as easy to just stream a PC game. You have to make the right connections, set up your OBS or streaming application the right way to capture, the on-screen capture of your mobile game and then be able to stream it. So I think those are what's different. But for the most part, it's been a really fun transition. And it's awesome to see like how many of these esports organizations, especially tier one, are supportive of mobile esports and they continue to invest in it, even though they've entered multiple leagues, but they know that it is going to be something that has a lot of potential.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And actually, kind of mixing in with everything that you've already been talking about. Nick asks, why did you choose to explore the mobile gaming space rather than PC or console gaming? What initially drew you to mobile gaming?
Yeah, so I was working at Apple at the time, and I went through like a very stressful stage of work, and I need to like I need an exit or something to just get my mind off things and relax. And mobile gaming was there. I owned all Macs, so as you know, Macs aren't the best with PC games. So I sold all my consoles because it was a distraction, and I owned an iPad and an iPhone, so I started playing mobile games, and it was a fun and easy time to. And a lot of the people at work played it too, so I wanted to actually play the games to just better connect with my team as their manager. And I got really good at the game. It was a mobile game, right? And I love MOBAs. That's I played the original Warcraft 3, Dota, right? All Stars and all that. I mean, it brings back so many memories in Korea for me, and I love mobile games, and I just became really, really good at it, and I loved it. Like it was a feeling where I was like reconnecting with my past in Korea, and it felt so good. Like it felt really good. I was like, this is something special. Like this is something truly special, and I saw the same feelings and reactions from the kids that I got to play with because I co-founded my own esports orgs, Hammers esports back then, and the same passion, the same dedication. I literally had like a deja vu of Korea because back in Korea, StarCraft blew up, and I was like, there's no way that StarCraft is gonna spread all over the world, and we're gonna see people like in stadiums, like in Korea, like literally people in stadiums are watching people play a PC game. I was like, this is kind of weird. This is crazy. So I was like, there's no way this is gonna happen in the United States. So I kind of gave that up and left it behind. and then went a traditional path and went to college and all that. Imagine if I like went into and stayed with StarCraft and PC esports, I think my career would be completely different. But I'm happy to be where I am now. And once I had that feeling again, I was like, I'm not gonna let that go. So I continue to, invest in the game in terms of my time and building the org and competing and in the feeling of competing on stage and winning and traveling. That kind of brought back all these awesome memories of like the early days of Korea. And I knew that this is like the early stages of something really special. And that's why I stuck to it and then and luckily for me, able to make a whole career out of it.
Yeah, that is great. And that's a, a really bold thing to do, to, leave such a already established job to start out in this new industry.
Yeah, my mom was like, "You're crazy. Why are you leaving Apple?" I was like, to play video games. She's like, "You're old. What are you doing? You're 18 anymore."
But what does she say now?
Oh, she saw me like as a caster. That's when it really clicked for them, when I was a caster and I was at the Asia Games, and that gave it a lot of more validation, because they're like, you could have been a doctor or a lawyer, all that. So it was really funny, actually. And I said, well, gaming is my passion. That's what I love, and that's what I enjoy. And I love working, I love coaching people and helping them succeed and perform. And that's been like very rewarding. So I just stuck to that. I just stuck to what I love. And back then when I played for mobile, like my salary was $500 a month. So it was like nothing. It was like basically nothing. So my parents were like, what are you doing? Like, you're crazy. So it was, looking in hindsight, it was the right decision. So
yeah, you had to follow your passion. I completely agree with that. Moving to the next question, RU asks, do you think there will ever be a thriving mobile esports scene in North America? And what will the steps be to get there, if so? Or do you think that these companies, and I'm assuming he means just mobile companies, are going to cater towards their already massive audiences internationally?
Yeah, I think that, again, it takes one game to really like be the tipping point. And I don't know what game that's going to be, but some mobile game will go viral. That's all it takes. Where a lot of it's going to be the young generation, because honestly, if you grew up playing PC, you're kind of stuck playing PC. Some PC gamers do also enjoy mobile games. There's definitely a crossover, but it's going to do with a very young generation. So generation, that are growing up like in the young teens. And once one game catches fire with that population base, is similar to what I see in other countries, then mobile esports will become successful, because it has a strong foundation of a certain demographic, right? If you look at China and Southeast Asia and Brazil, it's all very young audiences for mobile esports, that they grow up playing the game socially with their friends. And that's the key, is like once a game just takes over socially, where other people are playing the game because their friends play it as well, and it's a multiplayer game and it's really fun, and you can just play it right after school or in between breaks, and so on, and it's so accessible, so easy to play. I think that's what's going to make mobile esports more successful in the US. But I think it'll take a lot longer. So you think about StarCraft, right? 1999 was when it started to blow up in Korea. It took 10 years later. It wasn't even StarCraft 1. StarCraft 1 to me is like the OG. It's like way better than StarCraft 2 for you StarCraft 2 fans out there. But StarCraft 2,
that's a controversial statement.
StarCraft 2 is what took off. And that was 10 years, literally 10 years later. It took 10 years for the US to embrace StarCraft esports. So will it take another 10 years? I don't know. But with how fast mobile phones are accelerating and how great the games are right now today, if you look at the games, like Candy Crush is no longer the most downloaded game, because everyone asks me at these conferences, like the most downloaded games are all esports games. The highest, the most like billions of downloads I'm talking about, and billions of revenue. The highest revenue and the highest downloaded games, of all time in mobile, are actually now esports games. They're no longer these puzzle games in mobile, right? And that's the same thing with PC, right? So it's very to me, it's parallel, right? Mobile is just a little behind PC, because PC's develop a lot more. So I think that for North America, I don't know what game that's going to be. That's a big question. Will a game ever become mainstream enough? And that's all that needs, because like in Malaysia, it's a Mobile Legends. In China, it's Honor of Kings, and in PUBG Mobile. In India, it's PUBG Mobile. It just takes one game to just get a massive craze where every young person's playing it, and then boom, you have a mobile esports community.
Yeah. So it just takes, and you touched on that earlier actually, that it just takes one massive success to kind of incite an entire region and an entire group of players. So I think we're all just waiting for that. Moving on, Leanne asks, what are the major differences in infrastructure and support for mobile esports between NA and other major regions?
Yeah, so infrastructure and support, that's a really good question. In North America, it's of course a lot of the investment in terms of percentage and so on is definitely in PC and console. Because if you look at North America, it reflects the gaming market, right? If you look at North America, PC and console games are actually growing. They're still growing. If you look at regions like China and outside the US, PC and console is actually declining or plateauing. And mobile is growing in normally double-digit percentage growth. Like I read a lot of the earnings reports for all the gaming companies, and Tencent, like for the past like 10 or 12 quarterly earnings, they keep saying PC is negative percent or flat, so on. Even with the introduction of Valorant and all that, but if you look at mobile, it's literally always double-digit growth. It's like almost 70% or more of their total gaming revenue. It's pretty crazy how much, and the active users are always increasing as well. So in North America, it's actually mobile is still growing, of course, but PC and console are still growing too. So I think infrastructure-wise, it reflects the market. So in NA, of course, PC and console gets more, especially PC gets a lot more of the infrastructure and the support. But fortunately, orgs like TSM, Cloud9, and so on, they give similar priority and support to mobile. Of course, the salaries are much lower, which makes it reflects the market, right? The salaries are lower, but I think from infrastructure point, everything else is pretty much the same, in terms of like putting them into team houses. In other countries, though, because they are celebrities, so in China to like Free Fire, like for example, Free Fire is so popular in Brazil that, as you guys know, Brazil is known for CSGO, right? Like CSGO, they're huge in CSGO and so on. The Free Fire emulator players, the Free Fire players are already bigger than the CSGO players, but the Free Fire players that play on PC emulator, right, of a mobile game are like 5 times bigger than all the CS:GO stars, right? And they still get paid up. I think for the top stars, they're probably paid the same as a CS:GO. But that's the power of mobile and captivating such a wide mainstream audience, right? So that's, and also their engagement is higher. So now, because of how successful and how massively mainstream like Free Fire is in Brazil, so an organization like Loud has more infrastructure put into investing in mobile, because if the market reflects the infrastructure investment, right? It's all about the market dynamics. So as a result, because Loud is so big in Free Fire, when they entered League, which is funny, they started mobile and then they entered League, they became one of the most popular League teams, like automatically. It was crazy. So and that's not something you see normally in other countries or in esports in general in North America, right?
Yeah.
So once that happens in North America, it eventually will, because it just takes one game. Like Free Fire literally captivated the whole country of Brazil, and as a result, because the market reflects how many people are playing it, spending money in the game, the infrastructure is much bigger and heavier in Brazil. Like there's Series A, B, C leagues, and then there's also other leagues. In India, like to qualify for an esports tournament, you have to beat 300,000 teams.
Yes.
So the scale is just totally different. So the infrastructure is going to reflect that, and then because such a big population and so many players are playing, competing, and then all these like players are all of a sudden getting millions of followers on Instagram, then the money then starts to follow, right? The investment, the infrastructure then starts to follow, and they build it up because there is a huge audience base there that they can serve. And that's really like what it depends on in terms of infrastructure. So NA infrastructure is very small because it reflects the fan base, and the audience is not big yet, right? But once it does get big, like Call of Duty Mobile is a very popular game, and some of these like content creators like Ferg, for example, in Call of Duty Mobile, he has over 2 million subscribers on YouTube, right? And he's been very successful in mobile, because Call of Duty is one of the most popular mobile games in North America. So that's where Tribe, a mobile esports organization, is investing a lot in Call of Duty Mobile, for example. And Activision also is investing a lot in the battle royale tournaments, they're $100,000 tournaments,
Yeah.
right? The Call of Duty Mobile Esports Worldwide Championship is $2 million. I mean, the prize pool of mobile is starting to compete or actually be even more than PC and console games because it's making more money as more players and is making more money. So eventually the infrastructure is going to catch up to those market dynamics.
Yeah, I think those are all really great points. Hopefully, and it does catch up. Something that we've touched upon a lot is that mobile is much bigger internationally than in North America. And I mean, that's true for a lot of esports, of course. But what do you think it is about mobile specifically that's drawn such a large amount of players and users, particularly internationally?
Yeah, so I actually wrote about this on my Medium. So I'll link it here, and it comes a lot from my perspective growing up in Korea. And if you look at like entertainment in general and the options that people have to access entertainment, Americans in general are in, we're a developed country and we have a lot of access. We can play basketball, tennis, we have a lot of football fields, right? Football used to not be popular until they had football fields and start building football fields at every high school, right? And all the colleges, for example. Like football actually started in college and it just like spread and then became a very popular sport. So it's all about access to the sport and what's the most easy way to access it. So if you look at esports, it's literally cheap entertainment for the masses, right? And you look at other countries, what are their options to entertain themselves? Countries in China to Brazil, they don't have football fields or basketball and so on. They don't have all these other options. But what they do have and what everyone has now growing up is a smartphone, right? And what's a quick way to enjoy entertainment, especially with your friends? And that's the answer is mobile. And that's why mobile has taken off specifically very, very fast in those countries. And if you think about the internet, right, the internet in general, it delivers entertainment to us in a very cheap way, right? TikTok and all this stuff. And these are free to play games. So you don't have to pay anything. You just need to own a phone, have a good connection, and you can start enjoying, multiplayer entertainment online through your mobile phone. And you don't have to go, because back then, if you look at how these countries, because the US was always much richer than like China and like Brazil and Korea. So all these countries like Brazil, Korea, and all that, they had PC cafes, right? Brazil as a country actually invested a lot of money into offering PC internet cafes through a lot of their population so that they have access to the internet back when smartphones didn't even exist. And because Brazil did that as a country, Counter-Strike got very popular there, right? Because people were like playing after school and paying very cheap hourly rates. Same thing in Korea, StarCraft. Everyone was playing StarCraft after school, going to PC cafes, because not a lot of Koreans and Brazilians can afford PCs, that US and also consoles are very expensive. So the US was very dominated by consoles in the early stages back in the 2000s. It was a golden age of consoles. So that's why you didn't see the PC esports really take off in the US first. It took off in Korea and all these other countries because the PC cafes. I mean, it was like a $19-20 billion industry just operating a PC cafe. And I remember the days back in Korea where I would, like, the first thing I want to do after school is not play soccer. I would go to a PC cafe and then compete. And basically the goal was to be the best person at that PC cafe. And then I would visit other PC cafes and try to beat them. And say that I was the best in this neighborhood and then eventually the city. And they had like little tournaments and competitions, and boom, that's how StarCraft esports was born in Korea. I literally was there like witnessing how it, and then people were watching, like standing behind you watching, it was basically the early days of Twitch where I'm playing and then people were like standing behind you watching the game in action. And I knew something was really special happening. And then that led from a PC cafe to then a whole stadium of people watching. So I think that's probably the differences of why mobile took off much, much faster than the United States did or more Western developed countries, because it's much easier access to cheap. I want the word cheap. I don't want to use the word cheap, but it is like free to play and so on, where they can access multiplayer online games very, very easy. And they're really fun games. Right? I mean, that's the difference, right? They're really fun games to play, whether it's a battle royale, it's a shooter, or it's a mobile MOBA or mobile League of Legends, basically.
Right. So mobile games have a much lower barrier of entry as well as what you're trying to. That's what you're
Yeah,
getting at.
exactly. Yeah, and then also they have less options because they can't decide to go play tennis or basketball or football
Mhm.
at their schools. Their school just doesn't have those same facilities. But what everyone has at these third world countries is a phone. So
Mhm. Yeah, and like you said, PC bangs as well, which I don't even think we had the concept of in the United States for a long time.
yeah, if PC cafes were a big thing in America back then, I think gaming would be way bigger, like 2 times or maybe even 4 times bigger than it is today, because it
Mhm.
was a social experience. I mean, people would gather and go. It's like everyone going to after school to play basketball together or football or soccer or whatever. PC cafes gave that same experience where people literally were looking forward to go there on the weekends and like meet up with their buddies and their friends and then play games together. And it was super convenient because you can just order ramen and eat and play for hours and drink a Red Bull. You know,
Mhm.
it was like one of the most fun experiences I ever had in my life is like growing up in Korea during high school. So
Wow. Well, that's a great transition then. After your time in high school and the beginning of esports as you saw it, Miss Match asks, how did you get your start? That's not okay. How did you get your start in esports, and how have you grown throughout all of your different jobs? What's your transition and progress been like?
yeah, so my start was like I was just a manager at Apple. You know, I managed an Apple store, and they announced the Vainglory game on the iPhone 6. I will never forget it. It was like I'm like, wow, this is a mobile on a phone. Like, no way! It's like the graphics were like so good too, and it was like touch. And it's like it was precise. I was like, this is awesome. I gotta play it. So I
Mhm.
started playing it, got really good at it, and then one thing led to another, of course. And what's interesting is a lot of the stuff that I learned, like managing, leading teams, coaching people, developing them, helping them, exceed their expectations. A lot of it is very transferable and applicable in esports because ultimately you're running a team, you're managing a team, and you need to see and help how the team works together, right? And coaching is so critical in esports and in any sports is how are they communicating to each other, how are they listening to each other. These are very simple things that a manager at working at a retail store or any other like corporation job, like a lot of those skills are transferable. So for me, I went from esports in Korea to then Cornell University in an undergraduate business degree because I wanted to be an entrepreneur and like create my own startup and stuff and lead people. And then I then jumped into management roles and stuff like that. And then I went back to mobile esports, and that's where I saw a lot of success. I applied a lot of the things I learned at Apple and all these like top tier companies. Like when it
Mhm.
comes to talent development, like I mean, their HR teams are just ahead of the curve. Like at Apple, it's called people, right, or talent. And I applied a lot of what I learned there to like coaching and building my teams. And across every organization that I've been, we've won championships. So at Hammers, to Immortals, fun fact is that's their first North America championship was their Clash Royale team that I built there.
Wow.
And then TSM national champions in Brazil for Wild Rift. So every org that I've been to, I've delivered a championship team or roster that I built. And I think that a lot of what you guys learn in college about team building or working interning at like different companies and learning about how to develop people or how to get the best out of them. And if you're any of you in leadership positions in your organizations or in internships, then a lot of those leadership abilities are applicable in esports, definitely. And if you know how to, and it's all about talent because esports is all about the players and how well the team works and the talent works together as a team. Because there's a famous saying from I think Michael Jordan, like teamwork beats talent if talent doesn't work hard, um, or whatever. I think I misquoted that.
I mean, if not,
Uh,
then it's a saying that you just created, and it's a wonderful one.
so
So regardless of who
so
said
but,
it.
but it's really about the team because it's not about the so what I learned is because I'm a nerd. So I read a lot of books about because I want to be the best leader, best manager I could be at Apple to other places. And the key that I learned was a book. I read a book called The Captain Class, and they said that the in-game leader or the captain of the team is actually the most important person because they're the ones that execute. They're the Tom Brady that executes the strategy that the coaches and the organization gives them. Without a great captain who can't hold the team, he's a glue that holds the team together, leads the team. If they're down or they're tilting, whatever, the captain really is the one that steps up, because the character of that captain is what leads the team. And they analyze like over 1,000, teams, the best teams in the world for the past like 200 years. And there's like 10 teams that have sports dynasties that really stand out. And it's not a GOAT player. It's not because they had LeBron or whatever. It just came down to a very strong leader on that team. And I've actually taken that philosophy and applied it to esports. And I think that's a big reason why like I'm able to get championships across so many different teams, so many different games, and so many different organizations. So I think that's the cool thing about esports is a lot of the things that you learn in on teams and college and stuff, team building at work and so on, it's actually very applicable in esports. It's all transferable. So it's really cool.
So what would you say are some of the most important lessons you learned about talent and personnel management and development at your non-esport positions that you brought into esports that helped you succeed?
Yeah, I'll never forget. My mentor told me it's like you got to be such a great leader that they're willing to run through coves and a wall for you. I was like, what? Like, how do I do that? Because like hot coves and a wall. I'm like, I thought just running through hot coves for me is that enough?
Is that enough?
You also got to help them run through a wall for you. But how do you do that? And I'll never forget it. She said it's you have to set a fire in their heart. So it's your heart, your mind, and then your feet. And what she means by that is like basically the heart is like really caring about them as a leader, as a coach, really believing in them, supporting them and encouraging them, even when not being afraid to also tell them if they suck, that they really suck, right? Being real with them, but also making sure that they know that you believe in them and you're invested in them no matter what happens, and you believe that they can become a champion. So it's really about caring about them, because they're not going to care as much about you or the team if the leader doesn't care as much about them. And that's why a strong captain makes a big difference, because the captain cares and loves his team so much. So it's really like that. That's what I learned about being a great leader and a manager is lead with the heart. Number two is the mind. The strategy matters, honestly. Like if you're not innovating and like playing the meta and playing it really well, you're not going to win. Talent only goes so far. A lot of it is also the strategy, the how. So you have to also be very well versed and be the best at the game in terms of your skill level, the team strategies. You have to be on the edge, right? And then finally, the feet. Once you have those two lined up, the feet is like the action. You have to execute. You have to actually run towards your goal. You have to set goals and objectives and run towards it. Run through hot coals, even though you don't think you're going to make it. And then there's a wall. You need to run through that wall too, and you need to help them believe that they can be champions, right? So it's very similar. So if you break it down, it's why, how, and what. Why do I need to do this? How do I do it? And what do I need to do? You get those three things right, and in work, and even in life, to be honest with you, in life too, and in esports, then you're gonna probably see a lot of success, I would say. So that's something I'll never forget, because I was very like, my family background and my culture, I was very like execution focused. I always focused on what I needed to do. I was like an overachiever, super ambitious, always pushed people too hard, rubbed them the wrong way, didn't talk to them the right way, and was very abrasive because I was so competitive. I was like super competitive, right? If you didn't like meet my expectations, I would make sure you know it, and I would be very negative. Then I realized that you have to have empathy. You have to have a heart, right? And that matters, because if people know that you really, really care about them, not only professionally, like their career as an esports pro, but also you care about them as a person, and you have both those in sync, then you're gonna get the most out of that player. I mean, they're gonna surprise you and become amazing, talented superstars. And that's what happened to our Wild Rift Brazil team, actually. We were not able, because TSM was an external Brazil organization. We're not endemic to Brazil. And we couldn't sign the former like pro players that won championships in a very similar game as Wild Rift. No one wanted to sign with us. And we got a lot of unknown players that were not proven. And they ended up being champions. So I think that they're a good example of like talent is everywhere. You just need to find it, and as a leader, your job is to unlock it.
Yeah, I think you're completely correct, and I love how you mentioned the term meta for business, relating that to your development of both staff but also talent and players. I think that was really correct and great. Um, moving on to the next question, because a lot of people are really interested in what you have to say. Roastinator asks, what games are you most hyped for the rest of 2021 and 2022?
Oh, Roastinator. So for the 2021 Apex Legends Mobile, I would say, because I'm a big Apex Legends player on PC. I love it. I actually hated that game when I started because like this game is so hard. Like they made me jump master in the first drop. I was like, what's going on? This is just horrible onboarding. Like I don't even know how to be a jump master. But Apex Legends Mobiles, I think, has a lot of potential because it's a very quick game. It actually suits mobile really well, and that's why I love on PC because I can play a game in like just like 5-10 minutes, right? I think Apex Legends Mobile, I'm very excited about. Valorant Mobile, I'm also really, really excited about because we see its success on PC. But I think a lot of the stuff is very transferable to mobile as well. And some people just want to like pick up and play the game really quickly. And I think a lot of young kids will like it as well. And also, it's a very big brand, right? Like Riot and Valorant is a very big brand in North America. And you think like the future, looking far out, NFTs. I think games like Axie and blockchain games are gonna really disrupt and change the whole industry because it's about community. To me, gaming has transformed and evolved to be more focused on community, and that's why esports orgs can be so successful and exist, right? And what blockchain does is it's decentralized, right? It's I'm not going to the technicality of all this stuff, but basically it can give a lot back to the users and the players, which are the most important pieces of the game is your players and your users. So with blockchain, I think a lot of the time they spend in the game, they can own, what items or whatever, things that they have that they can actually own that via blockchain in the game. And also it gives back to them. So if you're really, really good at the game, you can actually, potentially make a living from it, because right now esports is very top heavy, right? Like look at Twitch, YouTube, like only the top 1%, or I would say 0.5%, or maybe even lower, can actually make a living off like YouTube, Twitch, and all that. It's a very centralized platform.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the nature and the truth of it, to be honest with you. And it's very top heavy right now. But with the future of NFTs and blockchain and gaming, it can actually make that less top heavy so that more of the community can benefit. So that's what I'm really excited about for the long term, and gets me really, thinking and staying up at night dreaming. No, I'm kidding.
Well, speaking of the future, I think something that esports is doing a better job of is inclusion and diversity. We're seeing a lot of female teams coming up. We have it with Valorant. Our TSM Women's Valorant team is awesome. And in that vein, Bell Bellum has another question. They asked that you brought up an interesting statistic where you said a majority of mobile gaming enthusiasts are women. So furthermore, what are some projects you're working on to engage female fans in TSM in North America?
Yeah, so what we're looking at is we're definitely looking and eyeing for female talent. So, in certain regions that we're operating, I don't want to give too much away, but we are looking at some of the most promising female talent. And I think over time, as the industry continues to evolve and how popular the games are, we're going to see a lot more female talent. So, for example, in Thailand, their team had the female is in the in-game leader. And in Free Fire, for example, and in China, they're showcasing a lot of female pros playing like Hearthstone and stuff like that. And I think that with what mobile is doing, it's because it's giving more access to them, and if they dedicate the time, then the talent will eventually come. And what we're doing at TSM is, we still have to perform, so we still look at performance, but there is actually a lot of potential talent that's untapped that we're looking to form academy teams and nurture and develop them. And a lot of them are actually younger, very young actually. They're definitely under 18 and stuff like that. So we're looking at these like upcoming stars that other pro players are talking about and bringing them on board and helping them become the best that they can be and successful. So we're actually doing that in a certain region for a specific game, because it has like a third of the game is female actually. So in Brazil, for example, a third of the player base is female. in China for Honor of Kings, 54% of the player base is female. But in
Wow.
general, it's much more. It's like about a third, I would say, in other countries is female based. If you look at America, like League of Legends, it's less than 10%. It's like 10% of the player base is female, and the 90% is male dominated game. So that's like what's promising. And because a larger section of the player base is female, we're going to eventually see some awesome pro players. We already see it in Thailand and other countries, right? So eventually in North America, we're going to start seeing that as well. Once we have more of the population and these female gamers, really embrace it and focus on becoming, esports stars.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're both really excited for that. Well then, in the same vein, Emzra asks, do you think mobile games will continue to get more advanced with time? For instance, we have Minecraft, Fortnite, and Among Us on mobile. And she asked if you think that mobile will eventually directly compete with PC. I don't know if that's specifically pertaining to like cross-platform or from a business esport viewership perspective, but feel free to take it away.
Yeah, I have two answers to that. I don't think it's really competing with PC. Again, it's more displacing in terms of, attracting a different audience base. I think a lot of people in North America, they grew up playing mobile games and they'll also play console and they also play PC. But the beautiful thing about that is they'll see mobile gamers as all gamers, right? It's no different than a PC or console gamer versus someone that only plays on PC. They have a very different experience and perspective of mobile gamers because they haven't really, dabbled in more hardcore mobile games, I would say. So I think mobile is not really going to compete with PC. It's not doing that right now in North America. Like PC is just, exceeding expectations and doing very, very well. Mm-hmm. However, long term though, mobile will be competing. And what I mean by that is if you look at AR games like Pokemon Go, right? That was a huge, it's still a very big game, but that took the world by storm. So imagine if like a mobile esport game did that, took the world by storm like Pokemon Go did, it'll instantly become the world's largest game, like across the world, if it can achieve the same viral effects that Pokemon Go did. But with mobile processors, right, there's something called ray tracing, where it's able to like reflect the light and do all these really cool, like very highly intensive graphics processing power needed to make things look realistic and lively. So that's already possible on a mobile processor, right? So what we will see is the mobile platform, again, it's a PC in your pocket because of the efficiency of the mobile processors and how fast and better they're getting. I mean, Apple is able to put multiple cores, processing and GPU cores on a mobile device and run it at at high frame rates without the phone getting too hot. So what we're going to see is that mobile processing power is going to be translated into wireless VR units and AR units, right? And mobile is going to literally determine the future of esports because you can't play an esports game tethered to like a headset. But if it's a wireless headset and it's in an arena, then things are going to get super interesting. I already saw this in China, by the way. China, like when I spent like 6 months in China because I was working with Tencent and casting over there. They had like 300 VR centers like 5 years ago. Now they have like 7,000 VR centers, VR arenas.
Wow.
And I met with the CEO of one of they're developing VR games like CS:GO games and they're wireless and they're powered by mobile processors. And that is the future. As mobile processor becomes more and more powerful, it's Moore's law. It's becoming way more powerful, and you're gonna see some really cool stuff as batteries become even better, and as well, and then mobile processors become better. Like the future is gonna be super exciting, and mobile is gonna drive a lot of it because that's how it works, right? Counts PC hardware. PC CPUs is what drives console innovation. They basically took a PC processor and then modified it, made it custom modded to a console, and then basically supercharged it, made it super powerful, and that's how the console gaming industry was born. So what we're gonna see is they're gonna take a mobile processor, supercharge it, and give it a lot more power because to run on a mobile phone, you have to throttle it because you can't have the phone get too hot. Right, but if it's on a wireless headset like VR or whatever, and you can like run, you have more space and less constraints, and where it doesn't have to be as thermal regulated, then you're going to see some really cool stuff come, and it's going to all come from mobile tech. It's not going to be PC tech. It's going to be mostly mobile tech because that is the future. That's where the silicon technology is headed. It's smaller chips, more efficient, more power efficient, and so on. So that's where I see mobile really making a big dent and actually competing well against a PC in the far future.
That was that was a great answer. I think there's a lot of insight there. We're running out of time, but I just want to ask one more question that I think a lot of people here are really curious about, and that is reflecting the fact that people have been asking about it. What advice would you give to someone who's currently in college and looking to get into the esport industry? How do they network with people? What should they do to prepare themselves for working in esports? What advice would you have for that?
Yeah, so I would say, like, I don't want to say the whole follow your passion kind of terminology. It's look at what you're really curious about and what you really enjoy doing, and then think about how that lines up with like where the future of an industry is going. Like for mobile gaming, I got lucky, to be honest with you. Like I joined and got really involved in mobile gaming when the whole industry just took off. And that's when like smartphones had bigger screens, and I was there at the beginning. And because I was there at the beginning, I was able to ride the wave of the whole industry, right? So I'm literally like riding the coattails of the hyper growth of mobile. So look at what you're excited about. If it's gaming and esports, then look at what the future could look like, right? You're kind of not really predicting the future, but you're kind of thinking about like what could be the next thing, and just invest and focus on where the growth is. So the biggest like advice I would give a college student is what industries are going to grow the most over the next 10 years, right? So and that's where you want to spend more time and be an expert in, whether if it's crypto or NFTs, because esports is digitally native. So if you're an expert in crypto, you're gonna have a need in esports in the future. I can tell you that. Like NFTs or whatever, right? Like you have to look at what, like if you try to join PC now, then that's gonna be a little more challenging because it's so established already. But if you're like at the beginnings of mobile esports, then it's in hyper growth, and there's always a need for talent. When industry is growing in very infant stages, there's a need for a lot of talented people to help build the infrastructure, build the foundation for that entire community to be successful. So you want to be the pioneers, right? You want to be the people who are at the forefront of that and at the beginning. And if you're not into like the curiosities of but you love leading and coaching people, then join organizations, join teams, sports teams, or run your esports organization or program at your university. Be very involved and learn what it takes to build a successful team. Learn what it takes, be a competitor yourself, and then become a coach and manager and learn all the insides of how to run a very successful esports operations, because that's very rare to find is talented people who can lead teams and help these teams win, because esports is all about competing and being successful, right? And if you're a very competitive person, then you can explore that and really, bathe in all that competition, because in college there's a lot of people who are hungry to compete, and you can work with all these different, or it doesn't have to even be an esports organization. It can be like an organization that's that could be a traditional sport, or even or gaming, whatever, just as long as you're like learning like how to build a team, how to lead a team, and what it takes to really win, right? So
Oh, is that okay?
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Following your passion, and I think it's also worth noting, like with you, you didn't instantly enter esports or find what your calling was, did you? You started out with Apple, and then you developed your leadership skills and transitioned into something that you now see as your passion.
Yeah, and you are where you are in life based on all like the sum of all the decisions you make before you. And if you look back at like my history, everything kind of lined up, but you always connect the dots backwards and never forward. So that's why just explore your curiosity, and then as the more you explore in college and what interests you, what makes you really curious, and you start like digging into it more, and your gut will tell you, like, you have this like feeling, I can't describe it, but once you feel it, and you know that this is something really special, and that's when you stick to it, and you become one of the best people at it, and then your career is going to take off, because when that then grows, you're one of the best people at it, and as a result, that wave grows. You're right on top of that wave. And I would say like that's what I suggest is just, and your life, like everything happens for a reason, right? And all your past experiences will led you to where you are now. And that's why I mean by explore as much as possible, be curious, dabble into like different areas. Like you never know what you're gonna find, but once you find it, you're gonna know. Like your gut's gonna tell you, and you're gonna love doing it. You're gonna enjoy doing it, and you're gonna get so obsessed with it. Basically, you're not able to sleep at night because you're thinking about it. You know that's when you know you found something special. So that's what I would suggest, and that's when you found something you really love, and you know it keeps you up at night because you want to work on it, you know, again or explore it further, learn more about it. And gaming was that for me definitely.
I mean, I can't think of a better place to end with something as inspirational as that. So I want to thank everyone for attending. Jeff, you've been really informative, and I can see that everyone in the chat and through how excited people were to ask you questions, that they really appreciated it too. Is there anything else you want to say before we head out?
No, just thank you guys for your interest in mobile. I love the insightful questions and how you guys are trying to learn more and continue learning. And I would say that that's the beautiful thing about college. And the more you learn, the more you explore, the more you're gonna know what that future path looks like for yourself. And that's something that I had to figure out too when I was in college. And attending these programs is really great. And one thing that I wish I took more advantage of is mentors. Like find mentors early in your career, whether it's a professor, like go to office hours. Like I'm telling you right now, like I started going office hours when I was a junior, and looking back, I was like, man, I should have did it when I was a freshman because like you're gonna get so much better understanding the material and build a relationship with your professor because you might need those references for a job later with professors and stuff. So like be as involved as possible. Be learn as much as you can, but be involved with your university as much as possible. And you might have to sacrifice a thirsty Thursday every now and then, but it's fine. It's going to help you set you up.
Well, I
for
think the only thing that we are really thirsty for is knowledge and mentorship. And speaking of mentorship, the TSM University Mentor Program is one of the most robust educational and helpful programs that you can get. So make sure to sign up at the next round. I'm mentoring right now, and if I can speak for everyone I'm mentoring, I'm the single most influential force in the history of the world. I think that's a fair thing to say. Thank you again, Jeff, who knows might be a mentor in the next round. So if you liked what Jeff had to say, and how couldn't you, then please make sure to sign up, spread the word. It's truly one of the most helpful things you can do to get involved in esports. Make sure to join us next time where Risa Chung, who is the project manager at Wisdom Gaming, will be joining us. That's on November 3rd at 5:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also, be sure to follow the channel so you know when we're live. And also remember to get vaccinated.
All right, guys, take care.
Thanks, everyone.